Good day, everybody. I'm delighted to be with everyone today to talk about ReStor Silver and ReStor Vital. So we're going to begin by talking about ReStor Silver and how my business partner, Brundy Brody, and I came to develop this product. It is a fascinating and unique product, and I'll say that again as we go along, but I'm just going to pause here and say this is a truly unique healthcare product that is only available to the world through NHT. We did that on purpose, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. The reason that ReStor came into being is because Brundy's child, Knut, was born now 16 years ago without the ability to produce a really critical enzyme that helps regulate calcium in the body. It took a while to discover that that was the issue. We just knew that he wasn't able to perform and meet the milestones that babies do as they're growing and developing. One of the things that was really lacking was his ability to move and roll the way that other babies did. So we knew that there was an issue with his musculature, and but it was much broader than that. He was a very sick little baby and not developing well at all. And so Brundy stepped away from a really wonderful job on Wall Street to dedicate herself full time to trying to understand what was going on with her son and how she might be able to intervene to help him to grow up as a healthy, normal, functioning kiddo. Next slide, please. So she set about to try to understand what was going on, and living in New York, she was a little far away from the rest of her family, who were all in Dallas, Texas. Her parents were both patients of mine, and her father, George, was keeping me apprised of what she was learning about Knut's health situation. And as things went further along, he asked me if I might be able to help, because Brundy knew that she wanted to use botanical medicines wherever she could, something organic and natural, if at all possible, to aid and abet this process of helping him to be healthy. So I agreed to do that. And we set about working together to understand what was going on and to seek a solution. And we knew that we needed to get to this issue with his muscles early. And so we began looking in that arena first to try to understand what was going on, and ultimately made the discovery that this enzyme, calcium ATPase, was at issue and not being produced in appropriate quantities by his body. Next slide, please. So we knew we needed to find something that addressed this issue of his muscles not performing the way they should. He would just make an effort and then be immediately exhausted. And so we wanted to find out what was going on. We began delving deeply into the cell level chemistry of these muscles and learned about this enzyme, calcium ATPase. So the skeletal muscle, you see the photo on the left is an image of the skeletal muscle. That's the muscles attached to our bones that help us move around, and they do that by receiving a signal from our brain through our nervous system to contract, and then to release that contraction, and then make another contraction as we move around to do work or to do play. This enzyme that we're talking about, this calcium ATPase enzyme, plays a critical role in that contraction and relaxation process for our skeletal muscles. When that signal comes from the nervous system and tells a muscle fiber to contract, there's a huge release of calcium into the muscle fiber, and it these calcium ions settle into these receptor sites, and that's what triggers a contraction. Well, in order for that contraction to release and for the muscle fiber to get ready for the next contraction, this enzyme, this calcium ATPase enzyme, has to gather up all of those calcium ions, pick them up and put them back into storage so that they're reloaded to be used again for the next muscle contraction, and that's what triggers the release of the contraction. So in normally functioning humans, we have an ample supply of those in our youth so that we're able to have many repetitions of contraction and relaxation cycles in order to be able to do work and play in a way that allows us to do that continuously and until we finally, after a period of time, fatigue. What was happening with Canute was he would have one or two repetitions and then be exhausted because he just didn't have any more of these calcium ATPase enzymes available. So we knew we were onto something when we found a botanical ingredient that would help the body to create more of this calcium ATPase enzyme and increase that endurance, so that ability to do more contraction and relaxation cycles before fatigue set in. And once we started with 100 different botanical ingredients and kept narrowing it down, trying to find the best solution to this issue. Once we found our key ingredient, then we could begin the process of building the formulation around that to support that effort and do additional things. Well, what we found out when we began seeing this improvement in skeletal muscle function is that that's not the only place that this special calcium regulating enzyme works. It also works in the other two types of muscles that we have in our body. We also have smooth muscle, which lines our blood vessels and it lines our digestive tract. It's in the wall of our bladder. Anything that's hollow and needs to move something through it has these smooth muscles as part of the structure. And we learned that it also, this calcium ATPase enzyme also plays a critical role in smooth muscle function as well. And finally, we also learned that it has a critically important role to play in cardiac muscle. Our heart muscle is the muscle that does the yeoman's work throughout our lives, from before we're born to the very last breath we take. That's the cardiac muscle. Our heart pumps an average of 70 beats per minute for the entirety of our lives without getting a day off. And so when we learned that calcium ATPase plays this role in all three of these muscle types, we began to realize that there was a much broader application than just helping this one child to be able to regain a normal set of growth factors and be able to begin hitting his milestones. We knew that we had something that was broadly applicable to all of us, because we realized that as we reach a certain age, 25 for men and about age 30 for women, we all begin to produce less and less of this enzyme, and that is one of the contributing factors to why we begin to see ourselves slowing down as we get older. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So let's talk a little bit about the chemistry, how this calcium ATPase enzyme works and what it does. Calcium, that mineral, when it's reduced to its purest form inside of our body, is an ion, and calcium ATPase then is an enzyme that acts as an ion pump. There is an amazing amount of calcium in our bodies. We all think of calcium being in our bones, but there is a lot of calcium circulating throughout our circulatory system and inside and outside of each of the cells, because calcium is used in cell chemistry throughout our bodies. But it has to be in the right place at the right time for our cells to work properly. And that's the role that this calcium ATPase enzyme plays. Its responsibility is to help move those calcium ions either from inside the cell to outside when there gets to be a buildup of too much, or in the case of the muscle fibers, to move it, to reload it, to set that muscle fiber up so that it can release a contraction and be ready to contract again. So there are two types of this calcium ATPase enzyme, and I've just generally described both of them. One of them is specific to the muscle, whether it be skeletal or smooth or cardiac muscle. And then the other type is in the plasma membrane, the cell wall, if you will, the way we talked about it when I was growing up in elementary school. My first appreciation of cells, they called it a cell wall. So it's that surrounding around the cell that allows material to come in and out of the cell, the things that the cell needs in order to do its manufacturing process, and the completed products that it needs to ship out and send outside of the cell membrane. The cell membrane facilitates that movement in and out of all of the different materials that are needed by the cell or need to be shipped out by the cell. And calcium ATPase in that cell membrane is responsible for helping make sure that we don't get too many calcium ions inside the cell. There's a pressure from outside the cell for calcium to move in, and when we get too many of those those ions inside the cell, the signaling in the cell begins to be distorted and doesn't work as well, and so we get lower quality production by that cell and what it's supposed to be doing, the work it's supposed to be performing. It begins to create less quality work. It begins to create a poorer replication of itself when it's time for that cell to die and for it to replace itself. And it causes the cell to die more quickly than it normally would. It has a shorter life cycle. So for all of those reasons, we really want to help regulate that calcium level inside the cell. And at its simplest level, we want to do that because the better quality regulation there is at that cellular level, the better all of our tissues work, and the better we feel, and the better we're able to perform in our lives. Next cell, please. Next slide, please. So I've really talked about most of this just as we were looking at the last slide. On that second picture on the right, you can see the uppermost portion of that has a kind of a double straight line across there, and then it shows a couple of funny looking helmet things. That's what the calcium ATPase enzyme is represented to be, and it helps take that excess calcium outside of the cell and put it out into the extracellular space where the body can use it for other important things like helping keep our bones strong and that sort of thing. The very top image is an electron microscope image of what one of these enzymes actually looks like. Then the lower part of the second image is actually a representation of what that muscle fiber calcium ATPase enzyme looks like, that is recycling the calcium to help us with our muscle contractions. And that key ingredient that we found that does such an amazing job of stimulating the body's ability to produce more of this enzyme is a very concentrated extract of the jasmine flower called methyl jasmonate. And when I say very concentrated, I'll give you this as a way of appreciating it. The amount of jasmine extract that you take when you take one dropper full of either the ReStor Silver or the ReStor Vital would be the equivalent to you drinking 1,000 cups of jasmine tea all at one sitting. Now, obviously, we can't do that, and so our efforts at bringing this to you in a tightly controlled, very concentrated way is what allows us to have these wonderful beneficial effects for the body. Next slide, please. So in addition to the jasmine extract, we wanted to make sure that we used some additional ingredients to balance up that formulation, cause other ancillary chemical processes to be improved and enhanced. So, of course, we began with a base of the purest water available, and then our delivery vehicle, we could have used alcohol or vegetable glycerin. We chose to use the vegetable glycerin because it's just, frankly, easier on the system, and it is an energy source in its own right, so it helps deliver the key ingredients right down to the cellular level and provide some energy to the cell to be able to assimilate, absorb, transport, and bring it in and use it. Then we also added a couple of important ingredients. One is a true amino acid. One is often thought of as an amino acid. These are L-arginine and taurine. Many of you are already familiar with using L-arginine in a product. It's used to great effect in the Allura products, and so it really improves circulation at the capillary level. It is critical in a chemical process called the nitric oxide cycle in the body. It does a beautiful job of helping musculature and our cardiovascular system, and so it's in there to help with the delivery. And then finally, taurine is a phenomenal ingredient that helps us to have stronger bones and regulate that process of laying calcium onto bones, amongst many other things. So those are the ingredients. This is a very clean product. This is an all organic product. It's very easy for the body to assimilate and use and put to work to great beneficial effect. Next slide, please. So what can it do? What are we wanting to accomplish? Well, what we're wanting to accomplish is to improve our health. And in our clinical trials, when we began getting feedback, we were testing for one thing, but we were getting feedback about all of these additional wonderful effects that using the product were having, and so we began to research these as well and come to a clear, solid scientific understanding about why this one ingredient is able to do so many seemingly disparate, different things in our bodies. Well, it goes back in the first instance, it goes back to our discussion of the fact that the calcium ATPase enzyme is playing a critical role in smooth muscle function. When we talk about how it supports urinary health, bladder function. There are a couple of muscles in that bladder. One is in the wall of the bladder, and its responsibility is to squeeze to help empty the contents of the bladder. The other is a sphincter at the base of the bladder that's job is to hold tight while that bladder is filling up. Both of those are smooth muscles, and when we begin to experience bladder dysfunction, either due to a temporary situation like pregnancy or as we age, find ourselves getting up more frequently during the night to go to the bathroom and having the urge to find a bathroom during the day more frequently than we used to. All of that can often be related to the fact that we've just got a decline in the amount of the calcium ATPase available in those muscles, those smooth muscles of the bladder. And by using ReStor on a regular basis and improving the quantity and the quality of the production of that enzyme, we find that at first we're able to get up one less time at night, and then 2 less times. Finally, we're sleeping through the night because we have greater ability to and endurance to cause cause us to be able to get all the way through the night and have plenty of control for our bladder. We get so many great stories, great feedback from people, from members who have used this product. One of the leaders came up to me, Vivian, came up to me when I was in Taiwan one time and said, "I have to tell you this story about this young Chinese woman that I met," and said she came up after a member meeting and said, "You need to know that you've given me my life back with this product. I'm an avid basketball player. I'm 32 years old, and I began having incontinence to the point that I wasn't even able to play basketball because I couldn't step out onto the court and run without having an urgent need to go to the restroom. And I began using the product, and in just a short period of time, I found that I could get all the way to halftime and go to the restroom at halftime and then get through the game, and now I can go through the whole game without needing to worry about the fact that I'm going to have an urgency situation." And this is the quality, the caliber of impact that can be had by regular use of this product. The second area there is sleep. There's a gland deep inside of our brains called the pineal gland that is responsible for the production and regulation of an important hormone that most of you have heard about called melatonin in the body, which not only helps regulate our sleep but also plays a very important role in our immune function. And as we age, we begin to see the quality of our sleep decline. Often that is because we're producing less of this calcium ATPase enzyme. So by stimulating that production, we get greater output of the enzyme, which allows the pineal gland to do its job more effectively. And as a consequence, we begin sleeping more deeply and profoundly, waking up more refreshed and more able to engage our day. The other thing, and this is fascinating science to me, is that in quite old people, they've had an opportunity to do autopsies, or they are using this person whose body who's donated themselves to science. When they look at those pineal glands in elderly people, they find that they've calcified. They've almost turned into little bones, and that's because of this buildup of calcium inside the pineal gland tissue, due to a lack of the presence of this plasma membrane form of calcium ATPase in that tissue, and so it just wasn't able to pull enough of those calcium ions out of the pineal gland tissue, and it just got harder and harder. And of course, that lack of resiliency in that tissue is going to make it incapable of doing the job that it needs to do. So they've actually seen some great research that indicates that by utilizing greater numbers of calcium ATPase enzymes, you can reverse that effect and begin to take that excess calcium out of that tissue, making that pineal gland more supple again and able to produce melatonin again the way it's supposed to. So you can tell I'm excited about that. Another way that using ReStor regularly really helps improve the way we feel and move about our day is by its ability to increase our joint comfort and just tissue comfort in general, but specifically as it relates to stiffness in our joints. There's a specialized cell in our bodies called a mast cell, and when that cell gets too many calcium ions inside of it, it triggers an inflammation cascade that causes the inflammation levels in our tissues to rise, and it's especially prevalent in our joint tissues. And so, if we can use that calcium ATPase stimulation with ReStor to get those levels higher, then the net effect is that the inflammation levels in our body begin to come down. And I will tell you that that where a staggering percentage of research money is being spent in the last 10 years, and in the money going forward that's being set aside for research, it's all around inflammation as being the underlying cause to so many of the chronic lifestyle diseases that we hear about and we experience in ourselves and in our family and in our friends. So this is a huge thing. If we can begin to address this issue of tissue inflammation, then we really give our body the opportunity to be much more healthy and to be able to function at a much higher level. Finally, we've talked about muscle function and ReStor's ability to improve both single muscle contraction strength, but also the amount of repetitions we can do, contraction relaxation cycles we can do before we begin to experience fatigue. So by increasing that calcium ATPase level available in these muscles, we find ourselves able to work harder, play harder, exercise longer, and also recover more quickly after we've done these events, so that we're raring to go in a shorter time period. Next slide, please. So how do we take this great stuff? This is a liquid, and ReStor Silver has a lovely floral sweet flavor to it. The standard instructions for taking the product are to put 1 to 2 droppers full daily in a little bit of water and drink it. But I will tell you that that 75 to 80% of the people that I know will squirt this directly into their mouths. That's how I use it. Just squirt it in the mouth, hold it a little bit, swish it around, and swallow it. It tastes great, and there's just no problem with that. Shake the bottle well before you do that. Standard dosing is 1 dropper full in the morning and 1 dropper full in the evening. I will tell you that in order for you to experience these benefits quickly and have a clear understanding about how powerful this product can be for you and your health, I'd like you to take the first bottle at a loading dose of 2 droppers full in the morning and 2 droppers full at night. And we'll talk about that again as we talk about the vital. Next slide, please. So when we initially created this product, we just created one product and we called it ReStor, and we launched it with NHT in 2011. We launched it in the Asian market. Met with great success. I went around the country for 6 weeks teaching about the product, and then we got it launched. Went back the next year. The growth in sales and use had just dramatically increased. Had lots and lots of medical doctors in China using the product for all manner of things that we hadn't done any clinical research for, but they were giving us this great feedback about how beautifully it was working in a variety of things. We also began to get requests from the membership for us to have a better understanding of what the lifestyle is like for families especially in China, with their kids going to school, and the fact that this is such a competitive thing, school in China, in order to try to qualify to get in the very highest quality high schools and colleges. And so the members were asking if there were something that we might be able to do, ingredients that we might be able to add to ReStor. They loved the way it was working for them, but might there be something that we could do that would help people with focus, help people with high stress, help with the side effects of living that kind of life. And so we took that to heart, and Brundy and I went back to the lab, and we began searching for additional ingredients that we could add to our basic formulation that would address those specific needs. And the result of that further research effort was the second formulation in our ReStor line called ReStor Vital. And we really designed this to for support for anybody, regardless of age, that is dealing with a stressful situation, whether it's short-term or long-term. Next slide, please. So to kind of summarize what we were after, we wanted to bring some additional energy availability to the product. We wanted to be able to address a more active or a more stressful lifestyle. We wanted to be able to help people improve focus. We wanted to address the additional immune system load that goes along with being in a more stressful environment, and so all of those things were in our mind when we came out with this product, and we added 3 new ingredients to the base formula that is ReStor Silver to come up with ReStor Vital. And I'll ask you to move to the next slide. So stress impacts our bodies in a tremendous number of ways, but one of the ways that it does so is that it actually actively suppresses our body's ability to produce the calcium ATPase enzyme. So not only are we dealing with this greater stress, but we're dealing it with less capacity to be able to address the things that are happening in our lives because we're having this suppression of this critical enzyme. So we knew we wanted to do something that would boost our bodies even more, our body's ability to make the enzyme under stress, and then also be able to deal with the mental fog that sometimes comes with that additional stress as well. Next slide, please. So we added 3 more ingredients. You see the L-arginine and the taurine and the methyl jasmonate there from the original, and in addition to that, we've added an extract called gingerol from ginger root, and green tea, and then D-ribose. And I want to talk about each of those for just a moment. The reason that we added gingerol, well, the reasons that we added gingerol are that the gingerols have the capacity to stimulate greater production of calcium ATPase, just like the methyl jasmonate does, but it actually goes about it a little bit differently and works specifically when our body is under stress. When those stress hormones kicks in, that's when the gingerol is really able to step in and allow us to keep our production levels of calcium ATPase high. In addition, we have, I know many of you have experienced this, you're in such a rush, life is being hectic, work is stressful, and instead of making absolutely sure that we take our nutrition up a notch, we're just so pressed for time that's often the time that we'll swing through the drive-through or just grab something that we can nuke in the microwave and eat on the fly. And so we're not getting good quality nutrition. We're not getting good quality digestion of whatever we're putting in our bodies. So ginger has a long and studied history of being an aid to digestion in many ways, and that's another reason that we wanted to use it. And it also has some powerful antioxidant activities, so it's a great support for the immune system as well. Green tea extract is the ingredient that we chose, ECGC specifically, as the green tea extract, in order to help increase and improve mental clarity. Our ability to focus while under stress is greatly improved by using this ingredient in the right quantities, and we've got the perfect size dose for that built into this formulation. Green tea extract also has tremendous support for the immune system. It's another reason that we wanted to put it in there. Both the ginger root powder as gingerol and the ECGC are being regularly studied these days. There's a great deal of interest in each of these products' ability to help our bodies be more resilient against cancers. So it has a lot of benefits. And finally, last but certainly not least, this ingredient D-ribose. This is a very special sugar molecule, and it's a sugar molecule that the body loves and knows how to use beautifully. It helps the mitochondria in our cells to produce the basic energy molecule that is used throughout the body to power the engine of all of our chemistry, and that's the ATP molecule. D-ribose plays a critical role in that. Our body also uses that sugar as part of the backbone for our DNA when we're doing genetic coding and doing the transcription for that process. We talk about DNA and RNA, but when you say the full name of those things, that's ribonucleic acid for RNA and deoxyribonucleic acid for DNA. And so you can hear that ribose right in the middle of those names, and it really is the backbone of those structures. And so we're feeding the body not only the ability to have some additional energy availability, gives the body just a little nice oomph in the short term, so that then the energy that can come in behind it from the green tea and the ginger and the jasmonate for that longer term lift. We're also nourishing and nurturing the body's ability to make great copies of ourselves at an optimal level, so that as we're having that cellular turnover, we're able to extend our lives by having really high quality copies of ourselves. Next cell, please. Next slide, please. So the key benefits of Vital are all the same as they are with the silver, and additionally, when we find ourselves in any sort of stressful situation, we have the capacity, because of these additional ingredients, to function well under that stress, both from a mental clarity and focus standpoint, from an athletic performance standpoint. And then we also have great additional benefit being given to us for our immune system to be able to ward off all of the various things that are creating stress for us. We have higher oxidation activity whenever we're under stress and our stress hormones are activated. We also have a great deal of oxidative stress and toxic stress happening as a result of what we're experiencing in our environment, from the lack of quality in our industrial food supply, our water supplies, the air, the very air that we breathe. All of those things are presenting toxic materials to our body in different ways, and we're able to give the body some added ability to respond to those stresses when we take the ReStor Vital every day. Next slide, please. We take this in exactly the same way that we take the ReStor Silver. It's 2 droppers full a day for standard dosing. A bolus dosing would be 2 droppers full twice a day. I will tell you that because of the ginger and because of the green tea extract, this is a much spicier, pungent taste than the ReStor Silver is. I like to take Chinese herbs directly in my mouth, but some people find that the ReStor Vital has a strong enough taste that they really do prefer to put it in a little bit of water to dilute that, and then just drink it right down. Again, I want you to shake it very well before you use it. Next slide, please. Well, I'm gonna pause before I start talking about the beautiful ways that ReStor works with the other products, to tell you that that wherever I go, wherever I travel, and in my practice as well, as long as I was having my practice and had ReStor available to me to use with my patients, the resounding refrain was, "Okay, doc, which one of these is best for me?" And my answer to everyone is both. I really would love for each of you that can to use both of these products. Usually the way people use these products is to use the ReStor Vital in the morning for their morning dose, and use the ReStor Silver in the evening for their nighttime dose. There's enough energy and focus in the ReStor Vital that it can if you're sensitive in that way, it can keep you up night if you use it at night. I've got people who use it exclusively, use it at night, and do fine with it. But as a general rule, I would suggest that you use ReStor Vital in the morning and you use ReStor Silver at night. It's a beautiful combination. It allows you to deal with whatever stresses might arise during the day, but it allows you to then have a beautiful, calm experience at night and sleep deeply, wake up powerfully renewed for the next day. Now, Grundy and I really could have gone with any number of companies as the distributor for this product. We were courted widely, and we knew it was critically important to us that we have a relationship with a company who had the same goals and ideals we had from a business perspective. And I'm so delighted that we made this good decision to be with NHT Global, because they really are so focused on taking good care of members, just from the business side of things, but also in their philosophy of the kinds of products and the kinds of scientists that they're looking for who are creating these products, so that the very, very best formulations and the very best ingredients going into those formulations are the standard by which each of us work to come up with these formulations. And not only the standalone products, but we're also talking to one another to make sure that the product that I'm creating and formulating works beautifully with the other products in the line. So we're talking with the other scientists who are also doing product formulation to make sure that we have this beautiful synergy in the way these things work together, these products work together to improve your health. So I'll just give you a couple of quick examples. One, I know that there is a lot of buzz and excitement in the membership about the launch of a new product called Stem Renew. This really truly is an amazing product. It was my delight to get to spend a good deal of time on the phone with Dr. Chris and Tina, talking about the ways, all of the ways that ReStor and Stem Renew can work together to make the use of both of them together even more powerful than all of the things that they can do for you standalone. And that's true of those two products. That's true of ReStor and the fantastic omega-3 product from Dr. Ben, the Energen products, the Noni. All of these products begin to work more effectively when the ReStor is on board and doing its thing to improve the function of the whole GI tract to better absorb and assimilate all of the nutrients that are in these other ingredients, and help all of that work even better, deliver all of those key ingredients right down to the cells so that they can be used the way that they're supposed to. I'm getting close to the time where we need to wrap up. I want to tell you that that I could teach for a semester on all of the chemistry and all of the things that we're finding that ReStor has a beneficial impact when you use it on a regular basis. But ultimately, the best learning, the transition from me sharing some knowledge with you to you understanding the wisdom that is inherent in this product and these key natural ingredients created by nature, and the power that's in them is for you to experience in them yourselves. So I want you to buy these products. I would love for you to try both. I want you to buy some ReStor Silver and Vital if you can, and I want you to put it to use in your lives. I feel confident that you will begin in short order to appreciate that it can make a profound transformation in your life. And if you are experiencing that energy and vitality and health that comes from the regular use of this product and the rest of the products in the NHT line, it becomes so simple for that to be the tool, the sales tool that you have from a business standpoint, because people are just going to come up to you and say, I want to know what you're doing differently because you look so much better than you looked 3 months ago, 2 months ago. So please buy the product. Please use the product. Know that you can contact me with any questions that you might have by coming through the office. If you're no matter where you are in the world, Claire Parnell at NHT's main office is the principal person through which you can reach me with any questions that you have. And she is delighted to send those questions along to me, and I'm very responsive with answers. I look forward to hearing from you, hearing your great stories about how ReStor and the other NHT products are helping you to transform your lives and the lives of your family and loved ones and the lives of the people that you're talking to about your business. Thank you so much for giving me this time on your Saturday.
Dr. Lyle, this is Frances. And if you don't mind, if you've got the time, I've got a couple of little questions I'd like to ask you.
Certainly.
And I would like to say, too, that I had jotted down a number of questions, and you answered every one of them with a presentation. And to me, that's the type of information that you've shared with all of us that has been so informative. And I'm excited that you mentioned the synergy of the products and that they all work together. And you also emphasize the importance of people consistently using the products. I personally have used the ReStor products for a while, and I noticed one of the things that you mentioned in the presentation, that when I took the Vital in the evening, that I wasn't sleeping as well. So I identified that in a short time, though, and I certainly appreciate you bringing that out.
Yes.
One of the questions that I have is, if a person has borderline kidney function, does this help improve that at all?
Depending on what's causing that functional challenge, it certainly can. Remember that the plasma membrane form of this calcium ATPase enzyme is in the cell membrane for every single cell in the body. And so as we help improve the function of that plasma membrane calcium ATPase and improve the ability to pull that excess calcium out of those cells, then those cells are going to start working better. And they're going to recreate themselves better when it's time for them to die. And so we do see, and that's what I alluded to when I said, these docs were coming up to me in China telling me all manner of things that they were using the product for and seeing an improvement in. Type 1 diabetes and kidney malfunction are two of the things that were brought up a lot. So that's a long answer to give you the question. The answer, yes. We really do see generalized improvement in in everything over time, and certainly the things that are not working well, you will often see the most noticeable improvement in.
Thank you. The other question I had was on the line of cardiovascular problems that we see, and now they're saying that a lot of them are caused by inflammation as well.
Yes.
And you mentioned that the ReStor is great in helping with the inflammation. Would you expand on that a little bit?
Yes, I will, and I'll talk. Just give you one story about a cardiovascular situation at the same time. So I'll mention again the mast cells. Most of us have heard of histamine, and often with allergies we're taking an antihistamine, and so the histamine is something that our body produces as an inflammatory response to something that's happening that the body feels like. And inflammation is a good thing. It's a needed thing when it is dealing with a trauma or an injury or a response to an invasion from outside. What we're dealing with, though, is that our inflammatory responses have sort of gone off the rails, and part of that is because we're just being assaulted by so much toxicity in our lives. So these mast cells go through a process when they get too much calcium. Too many calcium ions inside that mast cell, they go through a process called degranulation. And that is what triggers one of the histamine inflammatory cascades. And so because we're leading these stressful lives, and so our calcium ATPase production is suppressed in general, plus we're all of us dealing with the standard decline in the production of that enzyme that happens just as we age. There's, they did an age-related clinical trial of people under 50, between 50 and 70, and over 70, and they measured the calcium ATPase levels in these folks in two ways, and they found that the over 70 people had a third of the calcium ATPase levels of the 50 and under people. So there's a dramatic decline. There's a less dramatic, but still a decline that starts, as I said, mid-20s for men and about 30 for women. And so we don't have as much of that enzyme available to have the mast cells be optimized so that they're only really doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is responding to the real invasions and the need to trigger this inflammation cascade. And so they're triggering it all the time. So we've got this greater level of inflammation, which puts our body on this this really fight or flight footing, and so we've got higher levels of cortisol being produced and higher levels of adrenaline being depended upon by our body to be able to get through these stressful situations. All of that is having a specific impact on cardiovascular health. They find very high cortisol levels in the tissue that surrounds the heart, called the pericardium, when there's a heart attack. And so if we can pull that level of inflammation down in all of our tissues, we're just going to be generally more healthy and better able to respond to the true stress situations. The one more thing I'll say about about cardiac function is just a very quick story, specifically related to my wife. My wife is just in an awful gene pool for heart problems, and so has been seeing a cardiologist all the while that we've been married. And when she began using ReStor regularly, about 8 months later, she went for her regular annual checkup with the cardiologist. And at that time, she'd been seeing this guy for 10 years. And he came back with the results of her stress test and all of the other lab work and said, I don't know what you're doing differently, but I want you to keep doing it because your heart's in better shape than it was 10 years ago when you first came to see me. So
wow.
that's the kind of powerful impact that you can have in improving your own health by being systematic about your use of a good quality product like ReStor.
Great, great. Well, I certainly appreciate you taking the extra time to answer the questions, and I know everybody really appreciates the presentation you did today. And with that, then we're going to conclude it, if that's all right with you.
Very good. Thanks again for letting me spend this time with you, and I look forward to hearing from you as the need arises.
Okay, great.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.